All right, welcome back to News Center. Thank you very much for staying with us. This is our second hour of the show, and we have still much more coming your way. Let's have a recap of our top story this morning. Right, the current war of words between Deputy President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga's camp seems to have rekindled the rivalry between the two politicians. The Ruto camp now wants the National Cohesion and Integration Commission to take action against ODM MPs whom they have accused of making defamatory remarks against the DP. And on News Center this morning, we have been looking at this new rivalry and its impact on the Building Bridges initiative. All right, so that's also the basis of our Twitter poll, where we're getting quite a number of tweets from you, a lot of interaction in there. We're asking you, do you think the renewed rivalry between NASA leader Raila Odinga and the Deputy President will derail the Building Bridges initiative? Let me sample a few tweets here like I promised. All right, so we have Nick Muller. You say, I say no. Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga not involving Ruto in the hand check was a clear indication that it has nothing to do with Building Bridges initiative. Ruto knows nothing about what was in the discussion that led to this particular initiative. Sir Douglas Matiko, you say yes, because Kenya's built-in political leaders' word of mouth and actions done with them dictates the movement of its various tribal groups under their party tags. Okay, somebody here also. Felix Siago, you say, first make us know which bridges we're building here, because if it's peace, there is peace already. The two are just doing their politics, nothing more, and I don't feel like it affects the country in any way. It's Honorable Raila giving opinion from the opposition, Deputy President from the government. All right, thank you for your comments. Quite a number of them. I'll keep looking at them as we continue here on News Center in this particular second hour. All right, let's get straight into more stories, and this time around from stories across our borders. And Burkina Faso security forces killed 3 suspected terrorists and arrested 1 more on Tuesday morning in an operation on the outskirts of the capital, Ouagadougou. 1 gendarme was killed in fighting in the Rayongo neighborhood, while 5 people, including 1 civilian, were injured. Ouagadougou has been hit by several Islamist militant attacks in recent years. In March, militants from a Mali-based Al-Qaeda affiliate killed 8 people and wounded dozens more in coordinated raids on the army headquarters and the French embassy. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has vowed to rebuild ties between the ruling ANC party and the influential COSATU Trade Union Federation ahead of next year's election. The African National Congress has held power since 1994, supported by an alliance with COSATU and the South African Communist Party. But the partnership broke down under former President Jacob Zuma, who was ousted from power in February after 9 years in office. The Confederation of South African Trade Unions clashed with the ANC by calling for Zuma to step down, while the Communist Party threatened to campaign as a standalone party against ANC in the upcoming elections.
Engaging in that, and part of that is to actually engage the alliance in the service delivery improvements for our people. Where there are problems and challenges, we identify them. Those coming elections is where we as an alliance have to be united. We have to play a key role together as we lead our people towards realizing the objectives of our national.
At the central market in Democratic Republic of Congo's Mbandaka, vendors in colorful fabrics hawking smoked monkeys say they hoped the Ebola risk could not affect their businesses, even though the residents said they were unmoved by warnings not to consume bushmeat since a case of Ebola was discovered in the city. Now, 2 more people have died as aid agencies battled to persuade skeptical residents about the severity of the outbreak that has killed 27 people since April. 7 new confirmed cases were also registered in Bikoro, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 28. Experts who have studied the Ebola virus since its discovery in 1976 along the Ebola River in Congo, then Zaire, say its suspected origin is forest butts. Links have been made to carcasses of freshly slaughtered animals eaten as bushmeat. Armed groups in South Sudan have released 210 children in Jonglei State's Pibor area as part of efforts by UN agencies and other partners to get warring parties to stop recruiting child soldiers, but ensuring the former child soldiers have access to education and jobs to deter recruitment remains a challenge. South Sudan has been mired in conflict since December 2013, when a row between President Salva Kiir and his sacked deputy Riek Machar ended with fighting that has often occurred along ethnic lines.
Please, nice photo. If you have video camera, please take this. It's so big.
It does not make sense for someone to say that they are defending the rights of the children and that's why they are fighting. Or they are defending the future of the children, and that's why they are fighting. They are defending the future of the country, and that's why they are fighting. But you cannot defend the future if you are destroying the future, because children are the future. So let us work together, shoulder to shoulder, and ensure that we make our words into actions.
US President Donald Trump said on Tuesday there was a substantial chance his summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will not take place as planned on June 12th, amid concerns that Kim is resistant to giving up his nuclear weapons. Trump raised doubts about the Singapore summit in talks with South Korean President Moon Jae-in, who came to Washington to urge Trump not to let a rare opportunity with reclusive North Korea slip away.
The big topic will be Singapore and the meeting, see what happens, whether or not it happens. If it does, that'll be great. It'll be a great thing for North Korea. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Whatever it is, it is. Well, we're moving along, and we'll see what happens. There are certain conditions that we want, and I think we'll get those conditions. And if we don't have the meeting. And if it doesn't happen, maybe it'll happen later. Maybe it'll happen at a different time. But we will see. But we are talking. There's a chance, it's a very substantial chance that it won't work out. I don't want to waste a lot of time, and I'm sure he doesn't want to waste a lot of time. So there's a very substantial chance that it won't work out, and that's okay. That doesn't mean it won't work out over a period of time, but it may not work out for June 12th. But there's a good chance that we'll have the meeting.
Facebook chief executive Mark Zuckerberg told the EU on Tuesday that regulation was important and inevitable. Meeting the leaders of the European Parliament, Zuckerberg said the question was not whether there should be regulation, but what kind of regulation there should be, in response to questions about whether Facebook ought to be broken up. He also said Facebook would be compliant by Friday with new general data protection regulation, which requires firms doing business in the EU's 28 member states to provide personal data in an understandable form for free and carries stiff fines of up to 4% of a company's annual turnover if it fails to comply.
Questions asked how I view regulation. I don't think the question here is whether or not there should be regulation. I think the question is what is the right regulation. I think the Internet is becoming increasingly important in people's lives. Some sort of regulation is important and inevitable, and the important thing is to get this right, and to make sure that we have regulatory frameworks that help protect people, that are flexible so that they allow for innovation, that don't inadvertently prevent new technologies like AI from being able to develop. We do expect to be fully compliant on May 25th, so in 3 days from now. We've had a large team working on this inside Facebook to make sure that we're compliant.
I think it's a very important question in this round, the market power of Facebook, and the question if you cross-use, for example, data between Facebook and WhatsApp. So it would be good if you say at least one word to that.
All right, so we want to come back home and talk about some issues facing us here in the country. And like I mentioned earlier when we started the show, today is International Day to End Obstetric Fistula. And shortly I will be speaking to Dr. Isaac Wasike from AMREF to talk to us more about this day and where we are at really with regard to this particular, this particular serious and tragic injury which kind of occurred really during childbirth. He's going to be talking to us more about this. But apart from that also, and before we get to that, we'd like to bring in the Senator for Kakamega, Cleophas Malala. Remember, I promised that we would have a conversation with him earlier on. He's joining us from Mombasa. And of course, we're talking about the current war of words between Deputy President William Ruto and the opposition leader Raila Odinga. All right, thank you very much, Senator, for joining us on News Center this morning. So first things first, what is the genesis of this renewed rivalry between the two politicians?
Must state here categorically that personally I am disappointed about the exchanges of words between our camp and William Ruto's camp. I must say that this country was at the verge of healing. We had started the healing process, and through the handshake the country had started coming together. And it's quite unfortunate if we again go back to a state whereby we start politicizing every statement a leader gives. And Betty, I want to say that I am personally disappointed and I am not in support of the exchange. I would want a country whereby we now focus on development, we focus on bringing our people together, we focus on solving the problems that we've been facing for the last 20 years in our country. Issues like police brutality, issues like electoral injustices. If we waste this opportunity that we've been given and the atmosphere that we had created to sort out those problems, we shall be the ones to blame in future. And therefore, I want to urge our leaders, I want to urge every political player to calm down the political temperatures and bring the nation together.
Right, and of course, like you mentioned, you said that you're very disappointed in this particular exchange. Do you think that it would have any impact on the Building Bridges initiative coming from the handshake? And, you know, many Kenyans received the handshake with a lot of positivity, saying that maybe this is the way to, you know, to start reconciliation in the country. So do you feel like this rivalry and this war of words between the two camps, you know, might have an impact on this particular new journey that, you know, the country began with the handshake?
The cohesion and integration that had started initially by the handshake, I think it is not, it is a national matter. It is not a matter of an individual. It's not all about the politicians who are players in this thing. It is about the country at large. And therefore, I would like to urge Kenyans that we continue preaching peace, we continue bringing our people together, and as a leadership, we shall challenge ourselves to ensure that we bring Kenya together. We know that the 2022 politics is what is bringing all this animosity on this table of peace. But I want to urge my colleagues and other political players to ensure that they suspend the 2022 debate so that we focus on important matters right now. I know this is going to go a long way in terms of interfering with the peace that had already started, but I am committed to talk to my colleagues. I'm committed to extend even my request to my other colleagues on the other divide so that we have one Kenya, Betty.
Interesting that you say that. And also just bringing in the politics of 2022 and also just going by the tweets, quite a number of Kenyans are saying that, you know what, first let's concentrate on making Kenya better, making, you know, Kenyans' lives better, and then we'll have the conversation about 2022 politics. But also in the same breath, you know, the people who are fronting for these proposals to do with, you know, constitutional referendum are saying that, you know, it's important that we have these discussions right now as we, of course, look forward in the 2022 to general election that, is still miles away from coming. What is your take on that? That there are people, especially from, ODM or the opposition, coming out to say that it's important we have such a conversation because it's also part of the bigger conversation of, general elections every time we have issues. Maybe it's actually a way of solving some of the issues we are yet to face in the future again.
Betty, it has been quite a challenge to us, and it's very unfortunate that after every 5 years, when we get into the electioneering period, we experience bloodshed, we have violence in our country, and these must be solved this time round. The only way we can sort out this is by reviewing the constitution, the electoral laws, by looking at issues that are going to make us together as a country. And one of the greatest impediments to peace in our country is the issue of exclusivity. We are saying that we have 42 tribes in Kenya. And if we want to have those tribes feeling a part of Kenya, we must address this issue of exclusivity once and for all. And the only way we can address such issues is by starting to think and to interrogate the process of reviewing the constitution. That I support wholeheartedly, because I believe that this is the only way that Kenyans are going to sort out their problems once and for all.
All right, finally, I'll of course ask you about some new developments, and there's one Mohammed Sheikh who's fronting for an age limit, up to the years of 70 for anybody who wants to bid for run for the presidency. And of course, there's a section of members of parliament who are against it, saying that this is a ploy to lock out Raila Odinga if indeed he will be on the ballot come 2022. What is your take about this new development that would see or, actually have time on the floor of the House?
I wouldn't want to indulge into such discussions because, Betty, our constitution is very clear. Discrimination. You cannot discriminate in terms of age, you cannot discriminate in terms of sex, physical attributes, and therefore that is not even a discussion that we should be advancing at this moment. And I would want to challenge my colleague on that, because that amendment is an amendment meant to disadvantage an individual. We need to create our laws for prosperity. We need to have laws that are going to help us even in the coming generations. And therefore, that we cannot support, that we shall oppose, and that we shall not even condone such discussions when it comes to constitutional amendment. When we want to amend the constitution, let us amend the constitution for the benefit of Kenyans. Let us not amend the constitution to benefit one individual or two individuals. Kenya is bigger than individuals, and therefore our focus should be to change the constitution that will help the common mwananchi back in the villages.
All right, Cleophas Malala, thank you very much for your time here on News Center. We appreciate your time speaking to us. He is the senator for Kakamega, talking to us about the politics of the day. All right, so we want to take a short commercial break right now, and we'll be coming back to continue with another conversation. Like I mentioned, today is International Day to End Obstetric. I have to know how to pronounce that word correct, fistula. And we'll be having a discussion with one Dr. Isaac Wasike, who is from AMREF, talking to us about it, also explaining to us what this exactly is. Don't go away, we'll be right back after this break.